Good evening, guys. We are talking football, real football, the stuff on the field that's going to happen. I am Josh Hancher on the Twitter at dog_stats. My co-host Graham Coffey is at Dog Out West. We are not breaking news. We are talking football.
We're talking football.
We're talking football. Graham, we're going to talk about Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Auburn. Two of those guys are on our regular season schedule, and one is sort of the not heir apparent, but the challenger in the West. Graham, before we get into it, any thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think you got three interesting teams here. Texas A&M has kind of been a preseason media darling for some. Kentucky, I think, is the most underrated program maybe in all of college football right now. And with Auburn and the coaching change and Bo Nix and just the whole Auburn dynamic that's always dramatic and interesting, should be a lot of fun to look at what's going to happen this year with these three.
Yeah, I've got the SEC stuff that I've got. Lots of stuff here. So we've got the over-under win total for each team here. Our teams in white here, highlighter, are the ones we're going to talk about tonight, and they've got Bill Connolly returning production, and then some of my 2020 metrics that I sort of track. So interestingly enough, Auburn is returning 73% of its offense, and that's way above average for Power 5. But that offense did not have any net yards per play and only a 43% success rate on offense. So we're going to talk about Auburn first. What jumped out at you, if anything, of those stats that you think about Auburn coming into the season?
I mean, I think the returning production is significant, but I mean, you have it here. Like, I think a lot of that is Bo Nix and Bigsby, right? Like, they lost a few wide receivers to the NFL. Williams was good. You had Schwartz, and then Stove, who I forgot about, was a very effective possession receiver for them for many, many years.
I've got it right here. I mean, they were going to have to replace their entire receiving core, and those are good numbers, not great numbers. I mean, I think we all know that Auburn was a dink and dunk offense, but Schwartz, every time he touched the ball, 50% of the time, he was successful on those plays, and he got a lot of targets in 86 plays right behind Williams. Williams is more of the big threat, but yeah, they're going to replace all that. But Tank is a real deal.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think the big storyline with Auburn, right, is obviously the coaching change. You got Brian Harsin coming in, been at Boise State for a long time, and really did a pretty good job of just kind of keeping watch over what Chris Peterson built there. Went to some group of 6 bowl games with those guys. I think he went to 2 as head coach at Boise, and wasn't like Kellen Mond era, fringe national title competitor Boise, but still one of the best programs in the group of 5 every single year. And doing that in Idaho where there's not much natural talent. Like, the thing that I think is interesting with him coming into the league is just like, he has a lot of experience with like taking kind of less and turning it into more. And I think that Auburn is a good roster. It's been recruited well. Like, their last class was awful before Malzahn left, but the upperclassmen there are all really talented players. So I kind of feel like Auburn might be a little bit of a sleeper if they can get some decent quarterback play.
Yeah, that's interesting because I haven't studied Harsin's offense. I mean, I think from what I understand, everyone loves the new coach. But what is interesting is that Auburn was near the bottom of the SEC in air yards per target from Bo Nix. And Harsin at Bachmeier was at 10.6 air yards per attempt versus Bo Nix's 8.6. So we're definitely going to see a different offense.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting to think about with Bo Nix is, that's 8.6 air yards past the line of scrimmage. But when you're Bo Nix and you take the snap and you immediately drop 15 yards out of your, he's got like a 15-yard step drop. That's the Bo Nix way. So, I mean, a lot of those throws were probably like twice as long in reality as they show up in these stat sheets.
They've got a tough schedule.
Yeah, like Bo Nix is like the only quarterback I've ever seen that like basically it's like he's got a fadeaway slant pattern kind of thing going on. Like, I don't know. I can't explain it, but he looks more like a basketball player, like, fading away, taking a shot than he does like your average quarterback, like stepping into a throw.
Our friend Nathan at Chapel Bell's got the best line about him. He's like, he would be a really good tight end if his last name were Nix.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think the interesting thing though is like, obviously TJ Finley came in the offseason. And we saw him like absolutely tear up South Carolina when LSU played them last year. Not that South Carolina was a juggernaut at all, but I think he went like 24 for 28 in that game and over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. And then he looked really bad in another start. And now he's not at LSU anymore, but like Harsin has a really good record with quarterbacks, right? And he's gotten good quarterback play out of a lot of different guys at Boise that, maybe don't have the arm talent of a TJ Finley. So I think that Harsin is the type of guy, like coming from an offensive background, that can simplify that system enough to make a guy like TJ Finley just come in and run his reads and, maybe read half the field. And if it's not there, you take off or you throw it away and lean on Bigsby in the run game, or use Bigsby as a nice safety valve out of the backfield. And all of a sudden Auburn is a pretty good looking, productive offense. And if that happens, then they could be a really good team, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I'm showing the Tank highlight here, but that's a tough. Penn State on the road is a brutal game for a new coaching staff, not a young coaching staff, but a young new to the offense there. I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, they play a lot of good teams. Most of those teams were as productive in net yards per play as Auburn was right there. Even Arkansas. It's like they got a tough schedule. So, but they've got, like you said, they've recruited well.
Right. And Tennessee taught us, never sleep on Georgia State there in week 3 of the season. But I think, with Auburn, it's always one of those things with Auburn where the years where they're supposed to be good, they struggle. In the years where no one's talking about them, you pop up in November and like they're in conference title contention. So I think that Georgia, it's probably to their advantage that they see Auburn kind of earlier in the season, especially coming off of an LSU game. Because I do think at some point, like Harsin will get them rolling, and I just feel like it would be very Auburn for them to either knock off LSU, Georgia, A&M, or Alabama. Like they will win one of those games, even if there's no logical reason that they should. They will.
And that's the kind of stuff that if you're gambling, I know you like to put a little money. Yeah. So on that 7-win over, that's the kind of thing
that's
you want.
That's a tough one, man. Yeah. What's the juice on that? Did you have that?
I do have it. I think it's the over is plus money and the under is minus money. Let me go.
That makes sense. I mean, honestly, in my gut, it feels like a push. But I mean, you got Akron. That's a win. Georgia State's a win. South Carolina's a win. The problem is, like, I can't call Mississippi State's probably a win, but you can't really call Arkansas or Ole Miss a guaranteed win. You can't call Penn State a guaranteed win. So I feel like Auburn could easily be like 5-7 or 9-3, and I wouldn't be surprised either way. Which makes them kind of the perfect Auburn team, right? But
yeah, they're plus 110 on the over.
So it's not, it's really not juiced that much then. So I think it's going to be interesting, dude. I really do. Just, I feel like with Auburn, they're probably undervalued in the preseason by a lot of people. And I think that they will be better than most expect.
Well, we've got D-Rob who transferred over there, and I think he's going to have a chance to get I think he
fell into. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's in a good spot because, like we said, they're going to be a lot of they're missing a lot of receiver experience over there, and he'll
probably start. Yeah. I mean, he could very well be the first option in that offense, which I think speaks to how deep Georgia's receiving room is. But what I will be interested to see with D-Rob and Bo Nix and or TJ Finley is just, will they use a guy with D-Rob's speed and a back like Bigsby that's really good catching the ball out of the backfield just to make things easier on the quarterback, Like, I think Harsin in the long run could struggle at Auburn because I don't know if he's going to be able to recruit in the SEC. It's just so cutthroat, and it's not his background. But I think he has an opportunity here over the first few years, if he gets good quarterback play, to like sneak up and have one of those kind of magical, all in Auburn family bullshit kind of type.
And don't forget, I'm sure he's going to lean on Bobo in the coming years to bring in.
That's true. And Bobo's a really good coordinator, man. And, Bobo, what's interesting though, is like Bobo's system is not meant for a dual threat quarterback historically. I mean, like he'll run some draws and stuff like that, but like he's not a spread read option kind of coordinator. And I'm pretty sure they said at SEC Media Days they were planning on having Bo Nix under center, which just feels odd to think about. So I'm kind of fascinated to see what happens. That Penn State game, though, if they win that game, watch out, because they're going to get rolling and they'll have a lot of momentum.
Well, I mean, again, just before we move on to Texas A&M, I mean, Tank was the SEC Freshman of the Year. He was, Georgia wanted him. But, we had a full running back room. He went over there, and he did not play a lot in the Georgia game. He caught some balls, but he only got 8 carries. But yeah, he's going to get the ball a lot, and if they, like you say, if they, have a strong offensive line, that Bobo's going to want to run the damn ball. So Tank is one of those guys to keep a lookout. He could be the catalyst for one of those magical Auburn season bullshits.
I'll call it now that Tank Bigsby leads the SEC in rushing in 2021.
Oh, that's possible. He's going to get a bulk of the carries on an offense like that. So there it is. Yeah,
and I just don't think that their second and third options, they don't have that deep of a running back room. So I just think that he's going to have to carry it like 20 times a game, or touch the ball 20 times a game.
There you go. All right. So who is your quarterback for the Iron Bowl for Auburn?
TJ Finley.
Nice. There it is. I think you're right.
But I don't know, man. They did take Bo Nix to media days, which kind of tells me maybe they expect him to be in it for the long haul.
Huh. We'll see. I think the good thing is Harsin is not beholden to that name and that recruit. He's going to win that game. All right.
He didn't make any promises to Bo Nix.
Anything else before we pivot on to A&M?
No, sir.
All right, there it is. All right, I'm going to throw up A&M schedule here. They open with Kent State. They got Colorado, right? That's going to be a great game, right?
So I called this way back when we were doing over-under win totals. That's like my early season upset special of the year so far. My stone cold lock of the week of the year is Colorado upsetting Texas A&M in Boulder.
That's on the road?
Yeah, dude, it's on the road.
Oh,
wait,
wow.
It's not on the road, actually.
Okay.
Let's see.
I didn't do a good job.
I think it is on the road. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's see.
I just realized I can't put like ats in my my database here, so
no, you're good.
I don't have the home away.
It's at Colorado. Yeah,
okay.
So that's why. I mean, the altitude. We'll get to them. I just don't think they're going to take that game that seriously. But if you look at Colorado's season last year, they were good, and people don't remember it because they were in the Pac-12 and they only played like 5 games, I think. But they're
returning a lot of.
Yeah. They return a ton of production. They had a really good running game, which is what you want.
Second year, their coach. That was the tough spot for that coach to come into.
Yeah, exactly. After Tucker just kind of left like a thief in the night. But what I think is interesting with A&M, even beyond Colorado, but the reason, all right, so A&M has to replace the quarterback, right? Like,
yep.
You already said that, and I think that everyone's talking about the quarterback play like it's just sort of a given that they're going to get decent quarterback play. But like, other than Jameis at Florida State, who was a redshirt freshman, and both these guys have been on campus for more than a year, but like, it's just Jimbo's system's really hard to learn, man. And there's a lot of moving parts to it, and it requires kind of an NFL level of processing and intelligence. And neither of these guys are that special athletically in terms of having big arms or being really fast and dual threats out of the backfield. So I just don't know that Haynes King or the other guy, I forget his name. I just don't know that like they're gonna be kind of that average replacement sort of level at quarterback.
All right. Well, you called your shot on Tank saying he's going to lead the SEC in rushing, but Spiller is the real deal, and he's going to get a lot of carries in this offense as well. He's one of the 5.6 yards per attempt last year and a 50% success rate. I mean, he's special. And
he's explosive.
Yeah, he's explosive, and you can trust him with the ball. I mean, 175 touches is a lot. So. And then, we're excited about our tight end, Washington, but Wiedemeyer is the returning explosive tight end in the league. He is absolutely the real deal. And especially coming out of the slot, he could be a safety valve for a young quarterback. And he's really, really good. I'm going to run some tape on him and let you talk about it.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, I think that, like you said, he's really, really good. He will be a friendly target. Zach Calzada, that's the other guy.
Nice. Never heard of him. Zach Calzada, guys.
Former 3-star recruit. I think though you're right. Like I think Texas A&M will have that kind of team where they're not going to have to throw the ball that much, but at some point they're going to have to throw the ball to win. They're going to have to throw the ball to beat an Alabama or
an LSU. Yeah.
And Ole Miss is going to score enough points to put them in that situation as well. They are extremely good on the line of scrimmage and particularly on the defensive line of scrimmage. Like they return some beast. DeMarvin Leal is as good of a defensive lineman as there is in the SEC, and the back end of that defense is very, very good as well. I'm not as bullish on A&M as everyone else is. And I think that like everyone looked at what happened last year and it's like, oh, well, Fisher's starting to put his fingerprints on the program and logically they're going to get even better next year. And it just doesn't always work that way, like with roster turnover. And I think that maybe in 2 years, like you'll kind of see them bump back into that CFP contention type of range. But I would take under on the 9.5 wins for A&M.
Yeah. Well, especially if you got them losing to Colorado. Definitely take it.
Totally.
But
but even if they don't lose to Colorado, it's just like I think that the SEC West is a murderer's row, man. I mean, I think that at any given week, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas can snap up and bite somebody and beat them if they're not playing their best game. And I think that LSU is going to be very, very good again. And then there's obviously Alabama, and Auburn's the wild card.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Auburn and Mississippi are definitely the ones that are, I don't know about trap games if you want to call them that, but they're right there with them in skill and everything like that. So yeah, LSU is, I think, could be a sleeping giant this year. I mean, obviously the over, they got them at 8.5 wins, so it's arguably this third best team. So it's just who wins that game, who could be runner up to Alabama in the West. So I like that call of being bearish on the 9.5. All right. So you got over on Auburn and under on A&M. If anybody's keeping tabs, is that right?
Correct.
All right. Anything else on A&M? I think that Spiller is going to potentially lead the SEC in rushing.
I like it.
Yeah, he's really, really good, and that's kind of what when we talked about doing these shows. We're not going to go deep on these teams because we're Georgia fans and this is a Georgia thing. I know Graham wanted to branch out, but we want to talk about some of these players that you either forgot or you don't remember. So and Spiller is definitely one you're going to hear a lot about.
Yeah, he is, and I mean the other one that I would bring up is or not player, but the last thing I'd say about A&M is just don't discount how good their defense is. I mean, Elko has done a really good job there as coordinator. Last year, they were the number 1 team in the SEC in total defense, number 2 in passing defense, number 2 in rushing defense, number 3 in scoring defense. Like they were well-rounded in every way. They do lose some pieces, but they bring back most of the core. And so the tough thing is just if this was 5 years ago, we'd be talking about them, I think, as like a legit conference title or division title contender. But in this day and age, even a really, really good defense, even the best defense in college football, is giving up like 31 or 38 to Bama or LSU or Ole Miss. And it's just, I don't know if they can keep up with it.
That's a great point. I've flashed back up our sort of SEC metrics right here, and they're returning 74% of that defense. They were second in success rate allowed behind Alabama and Georgia's being right there. And so you're 100% right there. That is a good defense, and they're going to return a lot of it. So that's a good call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So we're going to pivot into another team on Georgia's schedule, the Kentucky Wildcats.
Yes.
We know them well. We play them every year. Their over under win total is like 6.5, I think. Let me check that real fast while you talk. But yeah, they don't pass the ball.
It's 6.5.
6.5. Okay.
Yeah.
But will they be better on offense, passing the ball? A little known fact that Chris Rodriguez is one of the best running backs to return in the SEC. He was 90% on short yardage and third and fourth down conversions. That's ridiculous. And he is one of the more explosive backs in the SEC that's going to return. Oh, actually, he was one of the most explosive backs in terms of EPA in the entire SEC. We've kind of highlighted a lot of these teams are returning running backs, and that's one that's going to get a lot of carries.
Yeah, man, I think you're right about Rodriguez, and honestly, some Georgia fans might get upset with me for saying this, but in that UGA Kentucky game last year, that was like I think it was a 14-3 snooze fest of a football game. Every time that he was in, like, they were hitting consistent 5-6 yard pops, and then they would take him out, bring the other guy back in, and things would shut down. But Rodriguez, like, I feel like if he had touched the ball 30 times against Georgia, that game might have gotten very, very uncomfortable for UGA.
Yeah, and I looked at some PFF stuff, and he had a 92 grade on PFF on overall rushing.
He's very, very good.
Yeah, very good. I mean, 67% success rate. My yards have him at 7.0. It's probably I'm not sure if I've got that filtered right, but I think he's somewhere between close to 6.5 yards per attempt or whatever. And that 0.528, that is ridiculous. That is, I mean, he is getting important yards. He's getting chunk yards. He is a beast, just like you said.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think the offensive line at Kentucky is probably the best offensive line unit, at least from preseason kind of expectation standpoint, maybe in the conference. Like, they can open up some holes. Those are some big, nasty men, and they can take over a football game very easily. If Kentucky gets just decent enough quarterback play to be a legitimate threat to hit downfield passes off of play action, then I think they finish second in the East.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, they're right there. They're returning 3 offensive linemen, Rodriguez. They just got to get better and get somewhat more versatile on offense, and they certainly can. Beat a lot of teams on their schedule, and the Florida game is going to be, I think, a handful for the Gators.
I do too. And I mean, Gatewood, who played against Georgia last year, the only extended action that he saw was against Georgia, which definitely not the defense that you want to kind of break in a new quarterback in his first start. But they do have a transfer coming in from Penn State, a guy named Will Levis. It's either Levis or Levi's. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Probably Levis. But, I think he might be the type of guy that can just kind of run the offense and execute and complete 6-yard out routes to the tight end on the short side of the field and do enough, just give them enough versatility to where you can't stack a bunch of guys right up in the middle of the box and guarantee they won't gash you. I am a little curious kind of how their offensive game planning is going to look. They had Eddie Gran there for a long time, and he was a really good offensive coordinator, and he was sort of let go of just kind of like Stoops had to fire somebody after they had a bad season a couple years ago. And so they've got Cohen, who I really know nothing about, as their OC. But we know that Kentucky can design a strong power run game that will churn out 7-8 minute drives and just keep your offense off the field and keep you from getting in a rhythm and keep a game close. If they can get some passing, I mean, the only time they've had decent quarterback play over the last 5 years, they were in a game at the end of the season to go to the conference championship game against Georgia. And that was, Terry Wilson's first year. And then he got injured and was never really the same. So I think it's interesting to think about what that team could be. What do they return on the defensive side? Do you know?
Let me see. I'll put up the main one here. They are returning 60% on 60% offense and defense. So yeah, they've got a lot coming back. Their offense, obviously, I showed you the negative EPA from their returning wide receiver, which is obviously terrible. But they were 5th in the league in rushing, which is pretty good, but considering they were probably limited on how many touches they could get rushing the ball. And so that you can certainly believe that they're going to run the ball, but if like we just said, if they could get marginal improvement on offense passing the ball, they could be tough. Let's pull up their schedule. So yeah, it was a decent defense. I mean, it's 46% success rate allowed. They had a negative net yards per play, but that's not surprising. A lot of the teams in the SEC after playing 10 games did that. And I do think they will be better on defense and offense this year. So that's a team on the upswing kind of thing. And
this isn't your granddad's Kentucky team, right? I mean, like the tackle they have, Kennard, is quite possibly the best offensive lineman in the SEC. Yusuf Corker, that safety, probably the best safety in the SEC. Like, they have dudes that will go and play on Sundays for a very long time. And there's, at least 3 to 5 draft picks that will come off that team next season. Looking at that schedule, I think that Missouri game in week 2 is going to be really interesting. I think whoever wins that game is going to kind of have that inside track on possibly being second in the East, depending on how Florida is. And I just don't know. There's so many unknowns with Florida right now that it's tough to say. But I mean, looking at the schedule, you would think,
if they can beat Missouri and they're going undefeated to Florida, I mean, and that's, I believe, at Lexington, I believe, right?
I think so. Yeah, they played in Gainesville last year. So I mean, those 3 of the first 4 games are wins. I would think Mississippi State, Tennessee, Vandy, New Mexico State are all wins. So that's 7 right there.
Yeah. So I mean, sneak up beats.
You get 6.5 is a good value for Kentucky.
Louisville and Missouri, win one of those and the ones you're supposed to, and you'll be on that over.
I mean, hell, dude, Mark Stoops rode a converted wide receiver to like a 10-win season a couple years ago. So I think that if God knows what will happen if he ever gets good quarterback play.
All right. Well, we've covered 3 of the teams. We're going to do all of them, all 13 teams, and even Vanderbilt.
Do we have to?
We do have to. It'll be in the 4-team show. So we're gonna compress that and maybe compress a little bit of the South Carolina one. Stick those together. But we appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We are doing this for fun and to create content. And also, I wanted to do this for Graham, Lamar, and Trigger Trey out there. If you're not listening to the 100 Sanford podcast, it's an absolute must listen.
Thank you.
It is. I am a connoisseur and take in a lot of the podcasts in the Georgia community, and it's really, honestly, one of the best ones out there. So kudos to you guys. And subscribe and do that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great content, and they do a little different than you guys get into the recruiting. You guys getting some interviews. I mean, they had Terrence Edwards and Roddy from UGAsports.com. And then who else? You had somebody else before that's still out there right now. Who am I forgetting? Chris Milton started the season off, and it was anyway, good show. Please listen to it, but also listen to us. But you probably are right now, hopefully.
Yeah, and Josh, thank you for all the hard work you do putting the graphics together for this and making us look smart and like we were informed when we get on screen. And if you're not following dog_stats on Twitter, you're missing out on some of the best advanced statistical analysis on college football out there, and the absolute best advanced statistical analysis that you can find on UGA football on the internet.
I love it. I enjoy doing it. I love being part of this community of dog fans making content. Again, like us, review us, and do all that sort of stuff. Graham, take us out of here, and I'll do the fade to black because we haven't screwed anything up yet.
This has been Dog Sports Live. I am Graham Coffey. That's Josh Hanser. Follow him on Twitter at dog_stats. Follow me at Dog Out West, and come and check us out next week or maybe later this week when we go and start previewing some more teams. It's football time. We're going to be hitting it hard. Please subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and give us thumbs ups and 5 stars.
All right. Love you guys. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.